This week's gospel is the Transfiguration, that moment when Jesus goes up the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and he starts glowing white. And Moses and Elijah appear and it's talking to him. It's kind of a confusing passage. It's an important passage, but it's a little bit confusing to get to what's going on in there. So a couple interesting theological things going on and a couple interesting personal things. Theologically, what's going on here? Jesus is glowing, right? He's glowing with this glory cloud, if you will, right? So in the Old Testament, when God showed up in the tabernacle and in the temple, it was this Shekinah glory cloud. The glory cloud that led Israel through the desert during that 40-year wandering shows up in the temple. This is the same cloud that overshadows Mary when she conceives Jesus, and now Jesus is up on the mountain and he's overshadowed by this cloud and he's glowing, right? So he's showing that he is God. So Peter, James, and John get to see this firsthand, and they are just speechless almost, except for Peter, who's kind of speaking almost without thinking, right? He's like, it's great that we're here, we should build some tents. Why is that your first thought, Peter? Right? So they don't even know what they're saying. They're so overcome by this thing, right? And Jesus is speaking with two people, right? Moses and Elijah. These guys represent Moses, representing the Pentateuch, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, traditionally written by Moses, the law, right? And Elijah. He doesn't write a book in the Bible, but he is like this prototypical prophet. So you've got the law and the prophets conversing with Jesus, showing that he is God, and he's in fact the same God who's present in the Old Testament to the Jewish people. Now in the New Testament, Jesus is God. It's the same God, right? And it's also interesting, Moses and Elijah are possibly the only 2 people, or at least 2 of the very few people in the Old Testament who saw God face to face, or at least Elijah saw him from behind, right? And so my personal theory is when Moses goes up on Mount Sinai and he sees God face to face, and when Elijah sees God's back, what did they see? They saw Jesus, right? They were at Mount Tabor there at the Transfiguration. So those are some theological things going on in the background. What's going on personally here for the apostles is Jesus is about to head to Jerusalem to be crucified and then rise again. And the apostles are going to see this, right? And Good Friday is absolutely going to shake their faith that he is the Messiah. Because they're not wrapping their minds around this thing. As much as Jesus is telling them, look, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to die, but I'm going to come back. They're still not wrapping their heads around what's going to happen to him. And so what's going on here is Jesus is preparing them for what they're about to experience on Good Friday. On Holy Thursday evening into Good Friday, the despair they're going to feel on Holy Saturday when Jesus is in the tomb, right? And then the utter confusion they feel on Easter Sunday when they start hearing rumors that Jesus is alive, right? Awake from the dead. So Jesus is preparing them for that by having this awesome experience where they see, oh my goodness, you are glowing, you are God, and the voice comes out of the heavens just like at his baptism, affirming that Jesus is the Father's beloved Son. So they have this giant affirmation of who Jesus is before they go into this very difficult moment that they're going to grow out of. And so it's kind of a personal thing for them. So the invitation for us this week is to ponder, what are these like mountaintop, glowing Jesus, voice from the heaven moments in our lives that have prepared us to go through something a little difficult, or maybe a lot of difficult, so that God can bring some growth out of that. Maybe you're in one of those mountaintop places right now. Things are going well for you. They're going well for your family. And so enjoy that. Relish that. Build some tents there, right? You want to stay in that moment. But recognize that God is using that not to keep you there forever. He's preparing you for whatever's coming next that might be difficult. And you can probably reflect back on times where something really awesome happened to prepare us for this bad thing that we were able to grow out of. So spend some time as a family talking about like where you might be on that spectrum. Is God preparing you for something, or is God pulling you out of that something right now?